Football's finally back, and in this first game we saw some really promising things. The game ended 24-10. It was really fun to watch, partly because it's a return to football after a long off season, but also because, as I said initially, we saw a really promising team that seemed consistent throughout. There were 2 skilled TD catches from Kenny Golladay and one from Dantes Ford, who grounded his way to the end zone. A running game that wasn't entirely useless, and a defense with some stopping power, not relying on the red zone and field goals. Just a great game to watch from the Lions' perspective, even if it is the Colts and the preseason. Positives.
Hey, that's pretty good.
The offensive line held its own. We only considered 1 sack and 5 QB hits. The run game had some movement and space. Now the Colts' defensive line isn't anything special, but it's still good to see that at the very least we can hold up against a low-tier pass rush and run stuff. Greg Robinson was part of that effort, and his ability to get to the second level was impressive. You could really see the athleticism. He is fast for a big man, which slightly eases my concern for that left side with the loss of Decker. The early part of the run game was good. We didn't get to see Abdullah run the ball much, which is a good thing, but he caught a really nice screen pass and showed us his best Theo Riddick impression at making a man miss, in Riddick's absence. Zenner was good old reliable, picking up 26 for 6 and breaking off a 19-yard long run early on. I'm most impressed by Washington's apparent improvement. He's actually looking where he's going, and his strength and physicality is doing the rest. There was a point where he was driving 3 or 4 Colts defenders back for positive yardage. He seems to be coming together. The defense looked good, and more importantly complete. Last year we made weak offenses look like they were the Patriots with a healthy Gronk. Now this was a weak offense, especially without Luck, but we didn't get exposed. We seemed much more urgent than last year. Even with the second team, the defense was able to get off the field rather than just bend and then break. Some specifics: the defensive line. Jeremiah Valawaga, I've probably butchered that, led the team in tackles with 6. He also had a really cool single-arm sack where he reached and almost effortlessly pulled the QB to the ground. Ashawn Robertson also stood out, applying pressure up the middle, which is good to see, something we haven't really had since Sue and Fairley left, and also batting down passes like he did last season. We didn't really get to see Tabor's instincts and ball hawking ability. What we did see, which surprised me, was his ability to run support. He made good tackles. They weren't super technically sharp, but he met the ball carrier head on, which was one of my criticisms in the video I did on him. Our linebacker core is looking good and deep. We obviously didn't get to see much of the starters. I feel Antoine Williams stood out the most to me in those first 2 drives with the starters. There were no big plays across the middle throughout the entire game. Aside from one screen pass to Pope that went for a chunk, the linebackers fulfilled their roles really well. Back to the offense, we have a really solid pack of QBs, and maybe they look better than they are because of the quality of the Colts defense, but the posture and ball placement and decision making from Kaya and Ruddick have been great. The lack of mistakes is excellent. If you look at the other games around the league, the quality of play, you see fumbled snaps, severely under or overthrown balls, and panicked decisions. Now Stafford's first drive did unfortunately end in a pick, but even so we were moving down the field with considerable speed. We had like 40 yards in 3 plays. And of course Golladay. He's everything we thought he'd be so far. He uses his size incredibly well, he has awesome body control, and he can catch, which is a plus for a receiver. Negatives.
What? Oh no! Oh no!
First of all, the biggest down of this game, the Kerry Hyder injury. It is a considerable hit to our pass rush, honestly the team's weakest aspect. He dropped to the ground with a non-contact injury to his Achilles, and he's expected to miss the season, which is a shame due to his standout season last year. The run game part 2. This isn't a major concern because these are the backups. The run game from Tion Green and Matt Asiata was poor. Green struggled to find and hit holes, and Asiata just looked really slow, so he would get swamped by like 4 guys almost immediately, and it shows in the stats. I wouldn't be surprised if both ended up cut, but there are 3 more games to play. Returns, we saw Jamal Agnew in the lineup for punt returner. Unfortunately, we didn't get to really see him take back any kicks. He seems to have a massive problem tracking the ball. A problem that showed up in practice, which means all his speed is basically useless if he can't follow the ball and get underneath it. So that's something that will have to be worked out. Michael Roberts, ball security. Plain and simple, he needs to learn to hold onto the rock. It's great he can catch and run. There was a play where he stiff-armed 2 players, but the ball got knocked out of his possession as he ran off the field. If he doesn't fix that, the game becomes too easy for the opposition. He'll be targeted and turn into a non-option. Finally, Laken Tomlinson. He was one of the guys I thought needed to do something special, and he just didn't. He got ball rushed and put on his heels 2 plays in a row. There were other linemen that struggled somewhat during the game, Norton being one, and Dahl and Glasgow have had an on and off season, but this is Laken's 3rd year, and he needs to do better. On to next week, we play the Jets. Should be an easy game, not that that really matters. We have a really easy preseason contrasted by one of the most difficult schedules. I think the Jets defense is better than the Colts. I know their front 7 is, so we should get a better grasp on how the O-line is, and how Ruddick and Kaya deal with a little more pressure. Thanks for watching, and as always, feel free to leave your opinions down below.